All right, welcome to Chapter 8 for Business Math called Loans. This is Lesson 8.4, Installment Loans, Monthly Payment Allocation. As always, make sure you're reading through the textbook. Pay attention to the examples, the vocabulary, the concepts it's giving you. Don't just look at how, look at why. Why are we doing this? Why are these numbers being multiplied or subtracted or added? What are we doing and why? It's going to matter that you pay attention to these little pieces and understand what you're doing so that you can apply them later. And also to the algebra problems toward the end of each section on the worksheets here tend to want you to understand what you're doing, not just how to do it. All right, so let's go ahead and read the summary here. We have part of each payment is allocated to pay the interest on the unpaid balance of the loan, and the remaining part is used to reduce the balance. The interest is calculated each month on the unpaid balance using the simple interest formula. And then they give us this piece here. So we have interest equals principal times rate times time. Payment to principal equals monthly payment minus interest. And then new principal equals the previous principal, whatever you had before, minus the payment to principal. So remember, when you make a payment on a loan or a credit card, not all of it's going to, and this is more of a loan idea than a credit card, because the credit card usually they just add the finance charge right in there. But when you do a loan, a car loan or home or anything like that, only a small piece of that payment actually goes to principal. The rest of it goes to interest. So that's definitely an important distinction to make there. Just making the payment doesn't mean that it's going to drop by that amount each month. A big portion of that payment is going to go to interest. All right, so Ralph Phillips obtained a 12-month, $1,500 loan at 12%. So we know how long, we know the principal, and we know the rate. His monthly payment is $133.20. For the first payment, find the interest, the payment to principal, and the new balance. So the interest, we're literally just going to use this guy here. Keep in mind, time is going to be out of 12 months. So they're not specifically saying that on here, but you're going to, how many months? You're going to divide by 12. So if we're calculating this for the first month, it's 1 out of 12 months. So I'll write it out here so you can see it. So here's our principal times our rate times our time. And since it's the first payment, it's going to be 1 month out of 12. So you're always going to divide by 12. You just need to figure out how many months are we talking about in the problem. So they don't necessarily show you that here. They do walk you through it in the chapter in the examples. So once you calculate this, you will know what the interest is for that first month. It's not going to be very big on this one. It's not a terribly big loan. So when you get here, you do 1,500 times 12%. Make sure you move your decimal over for the percentage. And then remember fractions, it's multiplication on the top, division on the bottom. So multiplying by 1 isn't going to change anything, so we just divide by 12. So whenever it's 1 over a number, it's really just dividing by that number on the bottom. That's really all it means. So payment to principal, what we need to do there is we need to take the amount that he's paying per month, which they already told us his payment is $133.20. And we're going to subtract the interest we just calculated here, because that amount isn't going to his principal. That amount is going to interest. So we need to take that amount away from his payment. And that'll tell us his payment to principal. The new balance is going to be his $1,500 minus the payment to principal. So we're going to subtract the payment to principal we did in part B. Okay. So this is part A, and this is part B. So kind of giving you another little hint there is you're just plugging in the number you calculated for part A, you're plugging here the number calculated for part B, and that'll tell you his new balance there. All right. So I'm going to let you guys finish up that calculation on there. Let's see. Number 2, exactly the same process. So they tell us time, they tell us principal, and they give us a rate. They tell us the payment amount for Miss Rita here. And again, we're looking at first payment. So we're going to do exactly the same thing we did in number 1. We're just going to switch up the numbers. So instead of $1,500 for the principal, it's going to be $8,500. Instead of 12% for the rate, it's going to be 8% for the rate. Still going to be 1/12 for the time because we're still looking at her first month. So 1 out of 12 months. And then we'll go through the exact same steps here. Just make sure you're paying attention and you're using the payment from this problem and the principal from this problem for part C. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and scooch down here a little bit. We'll look at these next pieces. All right, complete the repayment schedule for a $2,400 loan at 12% for 6 months. All right, so this is just a table kind of based on what you were doing up here, and you're just going to calculate more than 1 month. But remember, you're only doing 1 month at a time. So, pay attention to that when you're doing your calculations here. So for this first one, here's our starting balance. They put it in there for us. And then they're telling us the payment amount here. If you notice, all of these are exactly the same. So this column should also be the same, with the exception of the last payment might be a little smaller because it's paying it off. So be careful. Don't just automatically put 414 in there. It might be a little different because it's the last payment. That's why they leave a blank there. So as we go through here, so the amount for interest is $24. They calculated this for you. That's this part A that we did on these last 2. So principal, $2,400 times rate, which is 12. So we have our principal times our rate times our time. Remember, this is 1 month out of 12. So we're still going to end up with that 1 out of 12 each time here. So we end up with 2,400 times 12% divided by 12, basically. Remember, since it's 1/12, we're basically dividing. So we end up with $24. We subtract this from the payment amount so that we know what the principal is. And then you just bring your balance down. So it's $2,400. That was what the previous balance was, minus $390. And that gives you your new balance here. So now for the next one, and they went ahead and calculated the interest again for us. We already know we're going to make a $414 payment, but the interest would be not $2,400 this time. Now it's $2,010 that we're going to calculate the principal based off of. We're going to say times 12%, and then divide that by 12. And that gives us $20.10 minus, and that gives you your amount to principal. And then subtract that from your 2010 to give yourself your new balance. So this will be your new principal for this next piece. So you're going to take this principal in the box once you fill it in there and multiply it by 12% and divide by 12. And that'll tell you your interest for the third month. So we're doing 1/12 each time because we're only calculating 1 month at a time. If you were doing more than 1 month at a time, that's when that number would go up. But right now, we're just doing 1 month at a time. So just one little piece at a time here. And then you're going to subtract each one of these, like this, until you get over here. So the big thing here is you have to pay attention. This amount is going to help you determine what the payment amount will be. So what you'll want to do is take this final amount here and multiply to figure out the interest first, and add those two together to figure out what your last payment will be. And I'll give you a clue, it's going to be slightly bigger, like not a whole dollar bigger, with some change. It's going to be $1,414 and some change. Okay, so first calculate the interest off of this last amount here, this almost final balance, and then add them together to find your final payment. Okay, and then once you do that, you do the same darn thing here, but it should end up being 0, 0. So I'll give you that big clue there. If you're not 0, 0 at the end, you've done something wrong, because at the end of the 6 months, we should be paid off. We should be all done. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at number 4 real quick. And I believe number 4 is the last one for this guy. So Monty Ricker obtained a used car loan of $6,000 at 8% for 36 months. The monthly payment is $187.80. The balance of the loan after 12 months is $4,159.90. The balance after the 34th payment is, so we're at 34 payments, is $380.60. What is the interest for the first payment? So this one's pretty darn easy. We have our principal, we have our rate, and it's first payment. So we're going to do the same thing we did on the pretty much all the rest of these. We're going to take our principal times our rate times our time, and it's first month, so we have 1 over 12 again. So that'll tell us our interest for our first payment. And then what is the interest for the 13th payment? So in this one, and it's going to take you, it actually shouldn't really take you too much extra time, because they gave us the pieces we need. So after the 12th payment, they told us what the balance was. The balance of the loan after the 12th payment is $4,159.90. So we know what our principal is here. This is the amount we're paying on right now. We're still paying 8% on it, and we're still looking for a single payment. We're not looking for all 13 months together, just the 13th month. So 1 out of 12 again. All right, and that'll tell you how much interest you're paying on that 13th payment. Explain why the interest is so much different for the 2 payments. So, and this is kind of and thinking about the problem. If you're starting with 6,000, and we kind of experienced that with this one, it's going down each time you make a payment, right? It's coming down a little bit more and more. So as the principal goes down, should you be paying the same in interest, or should the interest also come down? So that's, just thinking about that type of problem. Why is the interest so different between the first and the 13th payment? And, pay attention to the idea, you're paying down on the principal. It's not the same amount anymore. So if the interest isn't going down, that's a pretty steep, penalty there for borrowing some money. All right, so what is the balance after the 35th payment? So they told us here's the 34th, and the balance after the 34th payment was $380. So we want to take $380.60 multiplied by our 8% times 1/12. And that'll tell us our interest for the 35th payment. And they want to know what our balance is, not just what our interest is. So here's the first piece. We need our interest, and then we're going to add that back to our payment. So we know our payment is 187.8. Sorry, not add it back, subtract it. Just throwing numbers out here. Whoop. So that's going to come over there. And then that'll tell you what your payment to principal was. So I know there's a couple boxes here on this very last one for Part D here. So we're going to subtract the amount we calculate from our payment. That's our payment to principal. And then we need to subtract from 380, $380.60, what we get here at the end here, the payment to principal. That'll tell us what our balance is on the 35th month. So couple steps definitely there on Part D. All right, so I hope that helped, and I will see you in Section 5.